Dr. Luisa here, welcome. Today I wanted to share with you some really powerful tip to help your children be extremely successful in learning. Either it's in-person learning or virtual learning, but it especially pertains to virtual learning. As we know, the world is under a lot of stress due to COVID. And with the winter coming up, we're facing possibly new closures because of the spike of COVID. And that definitely is not something what we are looking for. But if that happens, there's something extremely important we need to do as adults, as parents, as educators to help children really go through this challenging time thriving. How can we do that? It's all connected with mindset. Think about it. If your child is in elementary, middle, or even high school, your child is now in process of shaping her own opinions. These opinions are really set of thoughts repeated more and more and more often, and these thoughts repeated very often at some point become beliefs. That's exactly what mindset is. It's simply a system of beliefs, something we already accepted because we programmed ourselves into having the same thoughts over and over again. And why am I saying about mindset? Well, few days ago, I heard very interesting conversation between few friends in our martial arts school, in my martial arts business. It was after class, and kids were actually talking. Remember, these kids were between 10 to 15 years old. They were talking about politics. Interesting, right? 10, 11 years old kids talking about politics. And more specifically, they were talking about election which just took place here in the United States. Even more interesting thing is the things they were actually describing and the opinions they were expressing were quite strange. They were using words like dumb Trump, Biden is too old to be a president, he should die, he should not be part of government, he should not even be part of election. And I was thinking, don't they have some more interesting subjects to talk about, like soccer games, gymnastics, right? And they're talking about elections. Well, let's be honest here. They were not really expressing their own opinions. They were really expressing opinions based on what they heard in TV, the TV which probably they heard playing at home. They were probably expressing opinions of their peers who brought these opinions from their own home to school. And why am I saying that? We, as parents, we have to take bigger responsibility about what we say, what we express, what we demonstrate, what we model to children. Your mindset becomes a mindset of your child, and it will stay like that for many, many years. Sometimes kids still think in age of 40 and 50 years old the same way like their parents. They have the same beliefs because when they were children, they absorbed all these opinions and somehow they never learned how to think on their own. So think about it. During this challenging time, you are doing the best you can as a parent. You're driving from place to place, trying to handle work and kids. You're living under a lot of stress. So are your kids. Your stress affects them. Now let's think about school and a mindset for virtual learning. In March, when the whole world shut down, the shift to virtual learning had to happen overnight. Teachers were not prepared for it, and they didn't have experience in that. So, at least at the very beginning, virtual learning was extremely disorganized. Many schools did not even have proper, computers and those, what are these things called? The Chromebooks, right? To provide to their students. So kids were learning from these little laptops. Some of the kids were attending classes on the little cell phones. And what happened? The attitude towards virtual learning became very negative. So on the top of all the pressure and stress, kids developed the mindset that school is boring, virtual learning is annoying, virtual learning is frustrating. They started repeating and repeating and repeating over and over again the same beliefs that they hate virtual learning. If it's not your child, you're blessed. Good for you. But many kids, unfortunately, till today, believe that virtual learning is boring, is frustrating, and they believe that they hate it. So, what is our role here? First, you need to look how you perceive virtual learning. Very possibly, you also don't like it. But if your child needs to learn virtually, wouldn't it be better to help your child establish more positive, empowering mindset about virtual learning? After all, either it's learning in person or learning virtually, they serve your child as a means to gain knowledge, to grow in skills. So if we approach virtual learning in such a negative way, your child's attitude when he or she has to open that computer and again for hours spend time on that computer, that attitude will be so negative that will actually flood your child with these negative chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline, because your child will be angry and frustrated. And that will definitely not help the brain to absorb information, which will turn into even more frustration, because your child's brain will not want to memorize things. Your child will be focusing more on the feelings she has inside, those feelings of frustration and anger, than on what teacher is actually teaching and presenting in that virtual classroom. Now, how can we help children? One, we need to really watch what we say about virtual learning. So if you catch yourself being annoyed by it and having that negative opinion about the virtual learning, for the goodness of your child, maybe stop yourself and think your child is absorbing everything you're saying. Your child is like a sponge. And your child is believing into everything you say because you are your child's role model. Your child trusts you. Whatever you say, it's truth, right? So we need to take that responsibility. And we need to help your child to really find a different set of beliefs. Maybe believe like learning is treasure. Learning is powerful for our future. Learning shapes our future. Learning is interesting. Teacher you meet in Zoom has amazing knowledge which you can take as your own. What if you would help your child think this way? Don't you think that would actually help your children develop a little bit more positive mindset towards learning virtually? And this way, your child's brain would actually be more open to absorb all the knowledge which your child is given. Maybe you could stop calling virtual learning as schoolwork, but maybe you could use the word growth work. And then teach your child that learning is part of your growth. Growth. If you focus on growth now, building these skills and talents, getting new knowledge about different areas, that will benefit you for the future. Maybe spend some time with your child talking about that future. How all these skills your child is learning today from these wonderful teachers in the virtual room, how these skills can be benefiting him or her in the future. So mindset is everything. Mindset makes us believe in some specific way. So if these beliefs are negative, and there's a lot of negative around us, there's negative from TV, negative from social media, negative from the spouse who possibly is frustrated with the election, but that negative doesn't really serve your child. So if you cut yourself on that negative, think about it. If you manage to change it, you're going to help your child to change it as well, which means your child will be more successful in learning, will be benefiting that work on a much higher level. Your child's future depends on what you think and believe now, because your beliefs for many, many years will still be your child's beliefs until the time when she will start really thinking on his own and making decisions for himself. But that really doesn't happen until what? High school, and the high school kids are trying to have their own opinions. But the truth is, you're still stopping them. You're still trying to influence them. And then finally they're in college, and now in college they're independent. Now they have time to really taste life, right? But right now, especially if your child is in elementary, middle, high school, you are the one whose opinions matter the most. So give them the opinions, the beliefs which are empowering, which will make them thrive during this challenging time. And guess what happens at the same time? At the same time, you are going to cut yourself on a lot of negative beliefs which you have. And if you take that step farther and you be like, you know what, they're negative, but negative will never serve me. Is there something more empowering, something a little bit more positive I could actually think about this situation? We all know that every stick has two ends, which means every negative situation we're going through right now, at some point in the future, will come out to be positive. But again, that's our own decision. That's our mindset. It's that mindset that we believe that everything what's negative actually has its positive side, and we make that choice which one we choose. I hope that will inspire you for some more mindfulness, so you can establish a mindset which serves you and your child. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video.